Good morning, everyone. It's Lindsey Huddleston back in the building with another SPS Monday Motivation. That's right. It's Monday, and it's going to be a great Monday. Hope you guys are feeling okay. I hope you're doing well. Mondays are days to be concerned. Unfortunately, it's when most heart attacks happen in the nation because what you're doing, what you got going on, you're not feeling it. But I hope that you're encouraged today, that you can focus on the positive things that are happening in your life. In today's Monday Motivation, what is our topic? Panic or patience? Panic or patience? Whether you know it or not, we do have a choice. We do have a choice whether to panic in a situation or show patience. Interesting sports weekend. I'm waiting for the day when all the Michigan, Detroit teams can run the table. The Lions won. That's great. University of Michigan won over USC, bringing in that new Big Ten opponent, USC, beat them. And unfortunately, Michigan State did not fall in the winning column when they went up against Boston College, and I think this is a great discussion to have. I'll actually be sharing some more information about this in my column with Rivals Spartans Illustrated that's going to be out later on today. But just really want to talk about being able to put yourself in a position to manage the trigger warning when it comes up, when there's something that can get you panic and get you upset, right? We got to watch out for these trigger warnings, right? So what do we got here? Talking about the word, I think sometimes you can find a lot of value in just looking the word up. The actual definition of a word can give you a lot of support. The word panic, sudden, uncontrollable fear or anxiety, often causing wildly unthinking behavior. She hit him in a panic. Feel or cause to feel panic. The crowd panicked and stampeded for the exit. We know what those things are, but we often have them in life. We have something that may come up, and I use sports as an example. Watching the game of your favorite team can lead you into a panic, right? It can be that kind of situation. We'll talk about that in a second. But I think it's important that you identify what those triggers are, right? What helps trigger you into a panic? The term triggered is commonly used to describe a strong emotional or psychological response that is provoked by a specific stimulus. What is that stimulus? In our case, it can be everyday life. There's some amount of distress or pain. It's normal. It's normal. Everyone feels fear, sadness, anger, and other negative emotions. It happens, but it's all about how you manage those. But as we see, for most people, these emotions have logical and proportionate causes. That means they're equal to. When these feelings seem to come from nowhere or be stronger than their causes warrants, it may be due to an emotional trigger, meaning that something that can kind of get you to feel a certain way, you may be overreacting and responding in a more extreme way. I got Michelle Mimi Watkins this morning coming in first to say good morning, Michelle. How are you? Good to see you. I watched a great series on Prime about LSU and NIL, and I thought about you being Go Tigers and all that, but it was really interesting talking about the state of NIL. But I appreciate you and what's going on. Just talking about patience or panic. What are you going to choose? For example, we talk about these emotional triggers that we have for someone. It might be public speaking. Like, please don't put me up there and have me talk. Yours truly, I'll take the mic. I'm good with it. But there's some other things that I'll talk about. But sometimes those triggers can lead to things like what? Dizziness, chest pain, rapid heart rate, nausea, shaking, anger, anxiety, sadness. All these things can be triggered. But we want to be able to manage that, right? Speaking of these, before we go any further, I talked about the success of Michigan winning, the success of the Lions winning on the road against the Cardinals, but we talk about that Boston College game versus Michigan State. And I do have to say, a lot have been talked about with Aiden Childs, sophomore quarterback, showing some signs of greatness, but then, having several interceptions that really were impactful to the outcome of the game. I do have to say, for the record, I'm a fan of Aiden Childs, and I put my sports psychology hat on to say, when I come in contact with these young men and these young women, I'm all about what can help them be successful, not just on the field, but off the field. And I use Aiden as an example of my experiences that I've had with him going forward. Nice young man. Had a chance to sit down with him when he first hit campus. Him, his mom is great, met his dad. His little, I didn't meet his brother at the time, but I do want to say, don't get this picture twisted. Aiden is much taller and bigger than me. Aiden said that if he wasn't playing football, he'd want to be a bodybuilder. So if you really want to get an idea of what that's like, that's Aiden, all the 6'4" right there. You see him towering over me. Shout out to this crew right here. Shout out to Kerry McGee over at Veg Egg. My guy Sean Elliott as well. You got Ethan Boyd in the building. My guy Jay Green representing the Spartan Dog. That was a good group. We had some fun that day. But I just want to give you perspective. But I'm here and say I want the best for these young men. So when you talk about being triggered, let me bring this back. You talk about being triggered. Yeah, I was triggered watching Aiden play. I was triggered every time he would get ready to make a pass because my concern was like, man, is this going to be a completion or potential interception? And there were a lot of interceptions, 3 to be exact. So what we got to go back to when things can trigger you, you want to go back to this idea right here. This is a strong image because we talk about our freedom to choose our response. Meaning we have a freedom to panic or be patient. We have the stimulus, whatever that may be. In this particular case, it was Aiden getting ready to throw the ball. And then in between, I had a moment. And what I would start doing probably by 5:33 left in the fourth quarter, to be exact, I would take a deep breath when he would have the ball. And then he would throw it based on the outcome. I could respond accordingly. I think a lot of times we don't give ourselves that chance to do that. We have things that stimulate us, and we give ourselves no space in between to manage our response. Sometimes we say, oh, I can't help it. I can't help it. That just works me up. But you have to be able to make a decision. Do I want to panic or be patient? Because if you're able to be patient, you're able to kind of manage that. If you're able to take a moment and just breathe, take a moment and breathe. Give yourself that. Now, here's the question. Do you want to be patient? Or do you want to be caught up in this idea? And sometimes we get in this cycle where we spin and we let the anxiety and all those negative emotions come out. Sometimes we kind of like are so used to it that we almost expect it and we don't want to stop and give ourselves a moment. But I'm telling you, you do have this opportunity to do that. It's really important because if you start getting these emotional triggers over and over again, you'll find yourself in a horrible cycle, and we don't want that for you. We want you to be able to respond to these things. We want you to be able to choose patience and not panic. So going back to some of these triggers, right? Some of these trauma triggers are most often associated with post-traumatic stress. And we have it in different ways that PTSD may come up. It may not be because you were, fighting in the military. It may just be something that's traumatic that happened in your life and it gets triggered. And what happens when it gets triggered? Individuals find themselves irrationally angry about a situation or object. Sometimes it could be you watching a sporting event or watching TV and you're really triggered and it's really about something else. So we got to talk about how we want to identify these psychological triggers, right? Got Michelle Mimi Watkins stating, she said, need a toolbox for handling emotional triggers. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Michelle, and I appreciate you saying that. And like I was just saying a moment ago, my question becomes, do we allow ourselves to stay in that place because we're so used to that? And because it may be a negative emotion, the fact that it's emotion, we still want to engage it. And sometimes I think many times we feel we can't get ourselves out of that. But you're right. Need a toolbox for handling the emotional triggers. You're right. Know what your triggers are. And I'll tell a story about when I was in a high school. Well, it wasn't a high school. I was teaching. And there were a lot of behavioral issues going on. I was there to be a behavior support specialist to help the young people. And I love my job, love helping. But one day, one of the security guards came to me. There's not really a laughing matter. Maybe this is the way I respond to my trigger. He came to me and he closed the door and said, hold on, so I got something to show you. I said, what's up, man? What you got? And I don't know if you guys have watched the movie Life with Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy. And it's that one scene where they have the rocks in their hand. If you watch, you know what I'm talking about. The way he kind of showed them the rocks. And he opened his hand and he showed me 2 knives about this long, Michelle. Knives. And they were actually the type of knives that the way they were made, they had this multicolor, that you look at, this titanium glow to them. And I looked and I started, my vision got narrow. I felt a little like I couldn't really stand. I got a little nauseous. But that was a trigger for me. I was so triggered that I was in this situation where this was the extreme behavior. And I recognized I had to remove myself from that. So many times we try to push through these things and it's not good. We're not recognizing these emotional triggers that can really lead us to being not at our best self. So I think it's important to do that. So a few more things I have for you. Identify your responses. How are you going to respond to this thing? Are you going to panic or are you going to have patience? So when you identify a trigger, it's hard, but it's much easier to take stock of what you feel in the moment. Acknowledge those moments of how you feel. How do I really feel right now? Be real with yourself. Take a moment and step aside. I talk to my athletes when they're talking about going to the next level and being great. The ideas and the thoughts that I give them are different from their normal day to day. But the same is with you. If you want to really identify some of these triggers, say, well, how am I feeling right now? How does that make me feel? By examining what you're feeling, both physically and mentally, it will be easier to identify what the triggering event is. What is it that triggers me? I'm triggered when I feel that I don't have control of the situation. I'm triggered when I feel that there's so many other things going on that I can't be able to manage, and I get triggered. Also, you can retrace your steps. You can't get it the first time. Okay, how did I get here? What's really making me mad? Am I really bothered by the sporting event or something else that's been going on prior to this, right? Got brother Coach Jimmy Maker said, good morning, Hogs. Coach, how you doing? Keep pushing, keep getting them young men ready, and keep going, making things happen over there at those Central Trailblazers for football. A great guy indeed, man. Great guy indeed. I remember sitting next to you when we went down to visit Michigan with the Rachel Williams Foundation and seeing Michigan and what they're doing, and I'm sure that was a great experience being involved in that, man. I appreciate you and what's going on. We're trying to identify these emotional triggers and how we can manage that. Also, once you learn to take stock of your emotions, try to walk back through what led you to that situation. What were you doing before you got upset? What was it? Because it may not even be what you're dealing with in the present. It may be something that you came in contact with. It may be something that you're reminded of. It may be something that you're not willing to address and you're kind of focused on something else. And I think that's important that we do that so we can work our way through. And then if it doesn't work, repeat the cycle. Go through it all over again. And finally, don't feel discouraged if you can't identify a trigger on the first try. These feelings are often complicated, and it's not a failure to require multiple attempts to spot a psychological trigger. You got to work through it. You got to think through it. Like, what is it that's getting me at this point? And if it comes down to it, seek out some help. Seek out some professional help. Like I keep having this issue come up. Some triggers are things you may see, things you may smell. It may be tactile, something that you touch. It's all these different things because the brain is a very complicated instrument. It's a very complicated machine, and we have different things that we have to do. I'm back. Here's the thing, guys. You want to be able to make sure you can make the choice. Choose patience over panic. Whether it's your sport team not having the success you want right now, whether it is the things you have going on in your life, and know that you do have an opportunity to be able to pause before you respond. I'll go back to this image before we wrap up. There's an opportunity for you. You don't just have to say, oh, they got me like that, and let people just have control over how you're going to respond to things based on what you're experiencing. Look at the stimulus, which could be the person. Know you have a moment in between to choose, and then you can have your response. And you can be self-aware. Use your imagination. Use your conscience. You have independent will. You are in control. You don't have to panic when things aren't going the way you want. You can display some patience. You can sit back and say, let me make sure I'm in control of this situation so you can have the outcome you need and the outcome you want. So I just want to give some encouragement today. I want you guys to go and have a great day. I look forward to having a great day and a great week. Wishing the best for everybody out here. And I'm just happy for you, and thanks for your support. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.